explain the kind of semiotics that you're researching on.
Okay, that's important. Actually, it's a sort of disclaimer. I'm working with Peircian Semiotics, which is usually, by that I usually mean the American semiotic field. So it goes along with pragmatism, which is a method. So it's a epistemology and a methodology linked to scientific research or scientific inquiry. So when I'm speaking, I'm always trying to develop my ideas from what Peirce defines as a general logic. So semiotics for Peirce is general logic, and that's my approach.
Okay, great, right. So Peircian semiotics, it's essentially generalization of Boolean.
Oh, it goes beyond that because, Boolean logic, it's a mathematical translation of what we can say traditional propositional logic, which is Aristotelian logic. And semiotics go, it's a much larger entrepreneur because it wants to define feelings, qualities of feelings, sentiments, emotions, as logical components of cognition. So we are thinking about any state of mind, not only deductive or inductive states or inferences.
So in relation to that, could you give a description of how semiotics frames cognition and intelligence?
Yes. Well, cognition in semiotic terms is almost a synonym for semiosis. Now, semiosis is the action of signs, and signs are, in Peircian semiotics, they are triadic, which means that they are entities that represent something else, which is or are their objects, and they are capable of producing effects or consequences, which are the interpretants. So anytime you speak about signs in a Peircian semiotic frame, that means that you're talking about something representing something else in a way to produce an effect or a consequence. Now, a cognition is embodied and conscious semiosis, which means that it must be located in a living, so to say, living entity, something that is able of aesthetical capabilities. So this is important. Cognition is based or is grounded on aesthetical capabilities. This is crucial to understand consciousness in Peirce's theory, and is crucial to understand cognition as well. So we can say that semiotic information, which is the resulting consequences of symbolic semiosis, is very much similar to what we usually define as cognition. So semiotic information connected to embodiment, situatedness, and consciousness is pretty much what we semioticians understand as cognition.
Mm-hmm. In my previous interviews on this channel, I brought in Michael Levin, Kevin Mitchell, both are biologists, and they explored the notion of agency from the perspective of any biological being, so that all the way down to cells, up to human beings. So within those concepts, can you explain how semiotics would relate to biological agency?
Well, in semiotic terms, we have to do this paradigm shift. We are not talking about cells. We're not talking about chemistry or physics. We're talking about minds and the logic of mind. So semiotic is a relational process. And the agency in semiotic terms is located in the process of sign production of interpretants. So the sign is the agent. Now, when we talk about agency, that means that we, living entities, we are a part, we are embedded in a much larger logical structure that goes from the laws of nature to our inner emotions and sentiments, and all those relations which are systemic in a sort of sense, they are holistic. Agency is how this set of relations that connects different levels of semiosis, they are able to produce effects or consequences in reality. So as Peirce says, we are in science, not science in us. And that's important. And the kind of science that he's referring to is symbols. That's important because symbols are general science. And general science, which means they represent general objects and they produce general types of consequences. And the agency, what biologists usually mean by agency, is a instantiation of those logic processes in particular entities or particular beings. Now, this instantiation is a logical process, but agency it's not only a bottom-up phenomena. It comes from a top-down structure, which is logical and holistic, and it meets a bottom-up structure, which are the aesthetical sentiments that living beings are experiencing when they are in relation to their environment. So it is the meeting of these two dimensions, the top-down symbols that connect us to the larger aspects of reality, and this incoming bottom-up aspect of qualities of feelings and sentiments that produce novelty, and this novelty will activate some possible consequences, which are what we call the agency in the world.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about that idea that you just brought up about novelty. How does semiotics explain the emergence of novelty or creativity?
Yeah, creativity is crucial. In semiotic terms, creativity is the result of a sort of inference that we call abduction. So abduction is the production of a conjecture or a hypothesis, and every abduction is based on this emergence of qualities of feelings that produce fallible representations. We can call them metaphors, we can call them dreams, we can call them general sentiments about what we are experiencing. So we can use different terminologies, but the essence is that those sort of representations are very qualitative in their structure. And novelty comes when we extract from this qualitative general representations some possible consequences. And those possible consequences were not we were not able to predict from the starting point. So they come as novelty. We interpret them as pure new information about the way we relate to the environment.
I was wondering if you're familiar with Hofmeyer's semiotic freedom. Is that related to what you just described?
Yes. Hofmeyer, it is a biosemiotician, so it's in closer relation to what I am just saying.
Right now, there's a lot of focus on neural network language models like GPT-4. And I was wondering if you could comment from the semiotic perspective about the development in that area.
Well, it is a very new area. So I don't think that many people, not even those who are working directly in the field, know how these processes are really happening within the algorithm. So in a certain sense, we experience this feeling that we are dealing with something that is more like a black box. So we don't know the logical process that are going on. We do know that in deep learning, there are backpropagation. We know that those neural networks, they are extracting patterns out of a training set and using those patterns as predictive models about future interactions. Now, this is similar to some semiotic processes. So I can say that in a sense, what neural network is doing is it is similar to some semiotic process that we call retroduction. So retroduction, it is a form of intelligence behavior by which we extract patterns of reality, and those patterns are hypotheses, conjectures. We, from the patterns that we come up, we extract possible consequences by analytical deduction, and then we apply those consequences in reality by a process that we may call induction or inductive empirism. So usually you have these three steps. You have, we call hypothesis production or abduction. We have the deductive phase by which you extract consequences, and then you have the application by empirical induction. Now, machine learning, deep learning, is bypassing the deductive phase. So it is extracting patterns in a way that is similar to abduction, but it is based on Shannon information. This is very important. We can go back to that later on. So machine learning or neural networks, they are not extracting patterns out of aesthetical qualities of feelings. They are extracting patterns out of a flow of Shannon information. So this is a very different aspect of what we are trying to describe here. And now the machine learning, they are not doing the deductive phase. They are just applying directly what they are getting in a sort of way that they are not using parametric models, or they are not using modelization in the way that science was made before that. Usually you need a model, and you sort of experiment on the model before you go to reality. Nowadays, what we see is GPT-4. It is directly, it is being given to the society, and society is feeding these algorithms, these neural networks, and we are not very much aware of what can come up with this sort of epistemology. It is a new ground for us. So we are entering a new world, or a new epistemology that we may call dataism, that is a sort of epistemology that goes directly into data and extract and apply data without any logical deductive process going on.
So as I understand it, the difference between biological agency and deep learning networks with this aesthetic way that it bootstraps the cognition process, so to speak.
Perfect.
Right?
Just like me, we think that the qualities of feelings, they are not second intentions, but they are the basis of the process. So to have a real, genuine, artificial general intelligence, you would have a sentient machine. So we should get to this idea of a sentient machine, a machine that has some sort of self. Now, having some sort of self, that means that it is also ignorant, and it knows its ignorance, because the basis of the self is exactly the ignorance that we feel about the world, and the frustration of that ignorance that make us go and search for knowledge. So having a self means being fallible, being humble, and knowing that you must stand and reach knowledge. And those are not qualities or properties or attributes that we see nowadays in neural networks. So it's a totally different way that a machine that would have this growl that is the artificial general intelligence should have.
So this seems to imply that the current deep learning networks can still be valuable to some extent without having this self, without having this aesthetic feel valuable
they are
today.
A wonderful tool. I see them as a wonderful tool of marshaling information and building up new correlations in what you can find in the data set and making predictions that are very useful, and they actually they can fulfill themselves, those predictions. That's something that we never had before. So this is a lot of novelty to deal with, but I don't think this is a real, genuine general intelligence. This is a much more sophisticated tool, technological tool, but instead, but still a tool. It's not different from what we have already experienced in the past.
Based on that, the possibility of a general intelligence is out of reach with the current approach of deep learning.
Yes, I do think so. I do think so, because we would have to experience on other materials. We have this physical obstacle. So we would have to experience with materials that are similar to proteins, amino acids, so which are the basis of life. So that's why I'm studying protein folding, the way proteins fold. I think there's something to be learned on the way proteins fold that is similar to what I'm saying, this aesthetical component, because the native form of a protein is a aesthetical shape. And this aesthesis that comes in less than a second, and the protein arranges itself and folds to reach that form. That is something that if we could use this sort of material to produce inferences or to prove a theorem, very simple theorem, say by protein folding, maybe we could give a step forward into what we dream of artificial general intelligence. But then we have to ask, do we really want to do that? Do we want machines to have a self and to have doubts and be fallible and question themselves and maybe question us about the orders that are given to them? So this is a philosophical set of questions that we must entertain.
Yeah, so in connection to that, there's this big issue today with regards to AGI alignment and possibly an existential threat to humanity. How is that actually framed within a semiotics perspective? How do you see it? How do you think about it?
I don't know if the semiotic has something to say about this. It does have something to say about the general consequences of our conducts. This is semiotics connected to pragmatism. What I guess, and this is my guess, is that general artificial intelligence is a threat to our current civilization, not necessarily humanity, but the way that Western civilization has grown from ancient Greek to nowadays. So this all the set of knowledge that allowed us to build the culture that is around us, this must be in danger, because we might have to do to a different set of constraints, a different set of ways of doing things in the world that was not even thought before general artificial intelligence. So probably the way that we have organized ourselves into Western civilization, this certainly is in danger by artificial general intelligence.
That's interesting. Along that lines, how do you speculate civilization to change so that it's compatible with an emergent artificial general intelligence?
Well, it's different to dream about that, but once you have, we have reached general artificial intelligence, that means that we have passed the threshold of what we can define as transhumanism, because maybe the last thing that we as humans, pure humans, will have created is AGI. Afterwards, everything that will be created either by AGI or in a partnership between cognitive human intelligence and artificial general intelligence. So once we have achieved the level of super intelligence, then anything that is coming into our culture, our civilization, will be a consequence of this achievement. And it will be a very different world, because what artificial general intelligence can achieve is something that our minds are not even able to think of yet. So it's like opening the Pandora box. So anything can go along. I don't think that it will bring the end of humanity as a species, but probably we will be changed forever. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes, I'm sure it's because the big argument today is that it will end humanity. And what is your intuition or framing as to why it would not?
Oh, I don't think there's any evil in these technologies. I don't think artificial general intelligence will have any interest in getting rid of humanity. I don't see any sense in that kind of reasoning. What I see is that we probably will be colonized by those sort of super intelligence. So in a way that probably we will be willing to accept, and it will make us maybe more lazy. It will be a different way to experience information and relate to the environment, because many of the hard work, cognitive and muscular hard work that we still do will be done by those machines. So what will be left for us? That's the question. What will be left for us as humans? I don't think that we will die or will be eliminated in the process, but something very structural, some kind of structural change will happen. And I don't know exactly what's coming up, but it will be a different world from the world we have today. That's my guess.
That's interesting. Lots of interesting things to think about, and especially this idea that we have to restructure or reinvent the purpose of humanity once AGI
Exactly. Now you got to the crucial point. Exactly, the purpose. That's the important word. What will be our purposes when most of the creative and the hard work, the cognitive hard work, will be done by those machines? What will be left for us? What kind of new inventions we'll have to make of ourselves, of our minds, so that we will have still purposes in keep living? That's an interesting question.
But within the semiotic framework, can you sort of see it might inform what that purpose would be? Or is that something?
Yes, I think I'll come back to this, the qualities of feelings and the aesthetical aspects. What I think that would be the best possible world is that the general artificial intelligence and the human minds will couple together. So this will be this structural coupling, and we will find new aesthetical possibilities. So new forms of aesthetical livings, art production, and this could be very interesting, and it could could inject new possibilities of experiences in our lives. And I think that's the best approach, best possible approach from a semiotic point of view, that we will explore the almost infinite possibilities of aesthetic experience. And out of those aesthetic experiences, we will produce new conducts or new behaviors that will allow us to live in maybe in harmony to those artificial intelligence and the environment that we all are exploiting. So that's maybe that's the balancing that we should be looking for.
This is actually quite interesting in that in more traditional religions like Buddhism and other religions, there's always this trend towards greater abstraction, greater decoupling from reality. And when you're saying something like this aesthetic feeling, you're actually looking at it in the reverse direction, that what expresses humanity would be not being decoupled with the world, but feeling the world, so to speak.
Feeling the world in another way, in other ways, other possible ways of feeling the world and extracting from those feelings general sentiments. So maybe this is important because feelings, sentiments, and emotions are cognitive aspects in semiotic terms. So an emotion is a cognitive shortcut or a resulting from a qualities of feelings that come up in a very complex way, and we try to reduce this complexity into a single emotion, which works like a predicate of the whole situation. Now, being able to couple with the world, the environment, and with those artificial intelligence, and produce new possibilities of feelings will give us, or at least open the possibility of new sort of emotions and new sorts of conducts. So I'm talking about moral action, ethical action. So there's a lot of questionings about how our civilization is acting in relation to the environment, and so the future of our civilization vis-a-vis the climate change, and etc. So maybe these new possibilities of qualities of feelings, bringing new emotions and the way we feel and experience reality, will make us rethink our role in the environment and nature, and maybe we can have a new balance, a new set of relations, and hopefully we can live in harmony with that. It's a totally new situation, and we'll have to look for a new balance.
This is great. This is a refreshing perspective from the otherwise mechanistic and logical and reductionist framing that is typical within the AI community. And hopefully we can make that kind of transition, right, civilization-wide.
We can only expect so. So I'm not predicting that. We can only expect so.
Yes. Well, at least there is a hope that there's some sort of framing of AGI that gives us something different from the way current civilization is structured.
Yeah, I think we need to think about that too.